All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So, what I want to touch upon on this subject, or this podcast, I should say, is do you fall in love too quickly? Now, I'm not here to tell anybody, you know, that there's time limits on falling in love. That's ridiculous. You may see somebody and literally fall in love with them, and then you may end up with them and have a long lasting relationship, and it all works out wonderfully. You may meet somebody for the first time again. You may fall in love with them. I don't know, what the time limit is regarding you, maybe in certain situations. But I do think a lot of men and women out there do kind of fall in love too quickly. I call it a spell a lot of times because there's a big difference between, sometimes maybe lusting somebody, falling in love with them, or wanting them, or a physical type of attraction. There's all these different types of things. But I do think a lot of times, people that I've realized over the years that have a problem in relationships is they move too quickly. And one of the things I think that comes up is that they think they're in love. Even if it's the first, second, third date, or maybe after they have sex, they're all of a sudden madly in love. And again, that may be the case for you. I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong. But I do think people should start to kind of understand and learn to kind of take, a slower approach. I talk a lot about when it comes to relationships. I talk about building friendships first and respecting one another, then maybe leading into the relationship or starting to date from that perspective. Now, other people may argue with me. A lot of people, I was hearing something the opposite of what I usually say, which is becoming friends and taking it slow. And then another guy talking about relationship advice thought it was kind of the longer you postpone having sex with each other, the worse it is, because then you're kind of putting on a phony facade throughout that whole time to try to have sex with somebody. And then once you're done having sex with somebody, then that's truly who you are, which I don't understand that approach. And I found that quite interesting. But I don't even, a lot of people I think about sex too much when meeting others. And I get you may be attracted to one another, but I first think, for the most part, if you're wanting to be in a relationship, not a one-night stand or just a friend with benefits, I'm saying actually be in a relationship with someone long-term, it's first figuring out who the hell this person is. And I get they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be, maybe themselves entirely. But I think, I don't care if you have sex with somebody or not, you're not going to necessarily truly know who you're with until a substantial amount of time. Also, maybe living with them too, to a certain degree. But in this case, back to kind of, thinking you're in love a lot of times very quickly, which may be the case. But I do think if you can kind of just put the brakes on a little bit, and even if you're with somebody that maybe you are in love with them, maybe just letting things kind of just run its course a little bit. Having some fun, maybe not saying I love you so quickly, or maybe not taking things always so serious at the beginning of a relationship. And that, there's a lot of things there, I think, sometimes that can scare somebody else off. And you may not be thinking that way because you may, you're dying maybe to be in a relationship, and then you may meet somebody. And after a couple days, you're like, or a couple dates, you're like, this is it. This is the one. I want to introduce you to my parents. Maybe hold up on that a little bit. I'm just saying, because if it doesn't work out, just because you're all in, doesn't mean that other person's all in. I'm just saying. Same with maybe meeting your friends. A lot of times you may just want to hang out with this person for a month or two, see how things work out. Because a lot of times, as time goes on, you may be like, I'm all in, I'm in love with this person. Then in a month or two, you find out, who the hell knows? Maybe they're with someone else. Maybe they're cheating. Maybe they're not who you thought they were, even though you may have fallen in love with them. All these different type of things you have to think about, I think, when first starting to date or when wanting to be in a relationship with other people. Now, I'm not saying to go into it negatively, but a lot of times I do think people just jump all in too quickly, like I said earlier. And instead of just having some patience and saying, let me first figure out who this person is, because I think a lot of times we think we're in love with this specific person. You don't even really know this person. You may be in love with the way they look. You may be in love with maybe their career. You may be in love with the way they carry themselves, right? I'm just saying. You may be in love with other things as well. But there's a lot of other things that you may learn about this person that you may not love. And it can be a lot of bad things. You may not realize that they could be an alcoholic. They may be on drugs. They may be embezzling money. They may use people. You know what I mean? They may just want you to fool around with. You may be like I kind of said earlier, you may not even realize that they're married to somebody else or they're in a relationship with someone else. You don't know all these things. Now, we all can be fooled. But I do think a lot of us put or let our guard down too quickly. And I talk a little bit about this with my Mastering Self-Confidence with men is, you know what I mean, is protecting themselves. Because a lot of men, I believe, out there get rejected. And a lot of times they only like who likes them, or they end up in a position, they end up liking who likes them or fall in love with because they don't have a lot of opportunities. They may have asked a lot of women out. A lot of women may have rejected them, ghosted them, dumped them. And then before you know it, they do have somebody that's giving them attention. And they immediately start to fall in love and being all gaga over the person. Again, take your time. I'm just telling you, that goes for women as well. Please take your time when getting into a relationship. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to hit me up. And if you disagree with me, you could please leave a comment. But I do think when it comes to relationships, taking your time and also kind of realizing that, there is differences, I think, like I was saying earlier, there's lust, then there's love, and then there's an attraction, and then there's all these different things kind of going on. But if you're going to get in that relationship and you start, going over the top too quickly, you may be talking about getting serious too quickly, wanting to move in with one another too quickly, wanting to get married too quickly, wanting to have kids too quickly. And this goes for men and women. I think maybe one of the reasons you may be having complications in relationships is because you want to move things too quickly. Now, I will wrap it up with this. I think this really starts to happen with a lot of men and women when they're over 30. I think there's that panic button going on. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter if you're 30, 35, whatever the case may be. Now, I get you may want to have kids, at a certain amount of kids, and maybe you were more career-orientated in your past. But listen, just because I get, you want to have kids and you want all these things in a quick manner, do not rush these things. Because again, you may meet somebody in your 30s and be like, instead of waiting maybe a year or two to figure things out, you're like, no, I want to be engaged and married in 6 months, or I want a kid in a year or two. I don't necessarily always think that's the best move, just my opinion. Just take your time, regardless of what point you are in your life, and let things happen naturally. That's my 2 cents. All right, you got any questions or comments? Please feel free to hit me up. I'm at rich@richcelenza.com, and my website is richcelenza.com.